try to explain and show you the essentials of the Mac operating system as if I'm explaining it to my friends, something that I've done a lot over the last 15 years.
You know, it's been 4 years since my last Mac 101 guide, and over 1.6 million views later and hundreds of comments, it is time to update it. This is a dedicated episode for everyone who just got their first Mac and have no idea where to start. After watching this episode, you'll feel absolutely confident enjoying your Mac Mini, MacBook Air or Pro, as I'll make sure to take you from the absolute basics to some useful tips and tricks, including some easy shortcuts along the way. I will also take the most asked questions from the hundreds of comments I got last time into consideration and be sure to address them along the way. So throw away any intimidation feelings or doubts that you might have, because the Mac is a very pleasant and easy to use system. Now, allow me to start with the core concepts you need to know about the Mac. First things first, out of the box, the right click on your Mac might be disabled, especially if we're talking about laptops. Despite the fact that you can right click by pressing the control button and then click with the cursor, the proper right click needs to be enabled in the settings of the Mac. Don't ask me why. To do that, you can go to the Apple icon on the very top left and choose System Settings. From there, on the left side of the menu, scroll down to the secondary click and enable click or tap with 2 fingers. This way, you'll be able to right-click with just 2 fingers. While in the trackpad settings, you can also enable tap to click if you're on a laptop, so you won't have to force touch, but only tap. So the control button on Windows is the command key on the Mac. If you're coming from a Windows computer and you're used to Ctrl+C to copy, for example, you will quickly get used to the same shortcuts, but instead using the command key. For example, pressing Command+C copies and Command+V pastes. Same principle goes for the rest of the common shortcuts. I always try to explain it this way. You command the Mac to copy and command it to paste. That being said, another keyboard button to appreciate here is the Option key, which, as you might expect, gives you more options. A basic example that I can give you is when you have a document open in Pages or, let's say, Word. If you go to the File menu to, for example, save, if you press and hold the Option button, you'll discover, you guessed it, more options such as Save As. So commands and Option gives you more options. Finally, I want to explain cutting on a Mac. If we talk about cutting text, it works with Command+X. But if we talk about files, it works like this. You press on a file to copy it, Command+C, and when pasting, you press Option Command+V, which tells the Mac to paste it while removing it from the other location, aka cut. If you need some time and you're unable to catch up with the tutorial, I want to stress out that you can always use the timestamps in the video to go back and refer to a section of the episode. Now, let's continue. Unlike Windows or Linux, the Mac is a very drag and drop oriented system. As you use it, you'll notice that you can easily drag and drop files, text, images, and pretty much everything else all around the operating system. You can grab and drop images from pretty much anywhere and place them pretty much anywhere else. You can even drag and hold while you do other things like switching desktops or apps or even moving in and out of folders. Dragging and dropping is also the most common way to delete things, where you can simply drag and drop them in the trash, including apps. You can even delete colors from your color palette by dragging them directly to the trash. Of course, if you haven't emptied the trash, restoring files is just as simple. Talking about apps, unlike Windows where apps come in an exe files or executable files, Mac apps which are not in the App Store but downloaded from another place come in .dmg extension. DMG stands for macOS disk image file. You can think of DMG as if you're inserting a CD with software in it. When you open a DMG file, it even looks and acts as if you've inserted a physical disk in the computer. Once you're done with the disk, you can simply eject it or drag it to the trash to eject it. Some apps might require an installation process, which is always followed with a step-by-step wizard guide. Others, simpler ones, will only have to be dragged to the applications folder, which holds all the Mac's apps. As I mentioned, apps can be grabbed from the application folder and dragged over to the trash for removal. By default, macOS comes with tons of free and useful applications, even some creative ones. Now, when you press the X on an app instinctively, you don't necessarily quit it. In most cases, you just close the app's active window. Some apps can quit themselves when you press the X, but the majority will stay active. If you'd like to really quit them, you can press Command plus Q or go to the menu of the app and select Quit. It's a bit like the iPhone. You swipe up to go to the home page, but the app stays active. If an app freezes, you can force quit it by going to the Apple menu and opening the Force Quit window. This window shows all active apps, and you can select and force quit those that might read not responding. I'll show you some shortcuts at the end, one of them being force quit. By the way, if you end up enjoying this video, subscribe, because why not? Now, the final thing to know about the Mac before we move over to the overview is that there's no need to turn your Mac off. You can just put it to sleep. I honestly might quit my Mac maybe once a year, if not even less. The rest of the time, I just close the lid or put it to sleep, then I come back to it exactly where I left off. Now, despite the Mac requiring very little maintenance, one app that I've been using and recommending for years is Clean My Mac. You see, when you're new to macOS, things can feel fine for a long time, but eventually storage starts filling up, old files might pile up on top of each other, and the system slowly becomes less clear. Clean My Mac helps surface what macOS quietly accumulates over time. Think system cache, leftover files from deleted apps, large folders buried deep in storage, all shown in a visual way that makes it easy to understand what's actually taking up space, including your cloud storage. Tools like SmartCare and SpaceLens remove the guesswork, letting you decide what stays and what goes. The app is notarized by Apple, everything runs locally on the Mac, and nothing happens automatically without approval. There's also built-in system health and malware protection, so instead of juggling multiple tools or thinking about maintenance too often, everything stays predictable and easy to manage in the background. You can get tidy today and try Clean My Mac free for 7 days and use my code ThisIsE20 for 20% off. Okay, so core concepts aside, let's do an overview. You have powered up your Mac and you're greeted by the desktop, just like on Windows. The desktop is a folder in your Finder that is also your computer's canvas that can store files and folders just like on any computer. You can use it as a temporary space to drop stuff there, organize them by stacks, and even add widgets just like on the iPhone. If needed, you can have more than one desktop that can hold various app windows. If you decide to make an app full screen, it will open into a new full screen desktop, and you can move around the desktops with either the gestures on a trackpad or my most used shortcut command and the arrow keys left and right. On top of the desktop, you'll see the menu bar. If you come from Windows, all you need to remember is that the menu bar is the same as the menu bar on any Windows machine, but on the Mac, it's glued to the top instead of being part of the app window. With that being said, the menu changes depending on the app that is being used. If I open Safari, I see the menu bar for Safari. If I tap on the desktop, I'll see the Finder because, as I mentioned, the desktop is a folder in Finder. The only thing that doesn't change in the menu bar is the little app menu, which is global and always stays the same. It's the menu that controls the Mac, restarting system settings, etc. The other thing that doesn't change is the toolbar on the right side of the menu, which is there to hold various little icons that could be an extension of an app, like a quick menu for it, or a standalone simple app that just exists there, like a mini calendar, for example. Along the bottom of the screen sits the dock, which acts as the always available launcher and window manager while you work. You can pin and reorder apps in the dock to reflect how you actually use your Mac day to day. When a window is minimized, it tucks itself into the dock, waiting for it to be brought back when needed, which is actually different from an app simply being open and running. Opening an app will place it in the dock temporarily, even if it's not one you've pinned there. And once you fully quit the app, it disappears again unless you've chosen to keep it. You'll notice small indicator dots beneath some icons. Those dots show which apps are currently running, while the absence of a dot means the app isn't active at all. On the right side, you can add quick access folders like downloads next to the trash for faster file access. The dock is highly flexible and can be adjusted to be larger or smaller, set to auto hide, kept minimal, or even completely out of the way. And it's also worth noting that the dock can be brought back even while an app is being expanded to full screen by simply pushing on the bottom of the screen. Before moving on, it's worth clarifying how Windows control work on macOS compared to Windows. On a Mac, the three little window buttons live on the left side instead of the right, and they're in most cases color-coded like a traffic light to represent their main actions. Red closes the window, yellow minimizes it, and green expands or enters full screen depending on context. Every app window uses the same system, and as of lately, you can hold your mouse over the green button to use macOS's native snapping and presets. Same effect can be achieved if you grab a window and try to glue it to any of the four sides of the desktop. If you want to take full control of everything that's going on the Mac, you can use something called mission control, and to trigger it, all you have to do is press the control key, and instead of the left and right arrows that we talked about where you move between desktops, you can just press the arrow up. And now you have a bird's eye view of everything that is on the desktop, including the desktops on the top where you can also create new ones. So, mission control, super handy. Every app you install on the Mac, by the way, lives inside the applications folder, which is where the system keeps all installed software by default. You can launch apps directly from there, but the more convenient option for most people is the apps launcher. By default, it can be accessed through the dock or by using a trackpad gesture or other shortcuts. And it's there to present all installed apps in a grid that will feel immediately familiar if you've ever used an iPhone and an iPad. The apps launcher can be customized a little bit, and it does offer a search option. A much more productive way to search for apps and launch them is through the Spotlight. Spotlight is the little magnifying glass located in the menu bar or triggered by pressing Command plus space, and you can think of it as your Mac's global search. You can search for images, documents, text, dictionary explanations, and even do calculations on the fly. The most used case with Spotlight for many people, including me, is for launching apps, especially those which are not pinned in the dock. With the latest version of macOS, you can even run commands through Spotlight. So if I start Spotlight, I can say new reminder, for example, hit the tab and say buy milk. And instantly that reminder is in my reminders app. So that's pretty cool. Now let's talk about the cornerstone of macOS, the Finder. This is the system's file manager and the equivalent of Windows Explorer, and it's what you use to access everything stored on your Mac. When you set up a Mac, the system automatically creates a user folder for you. In my case, it's called Iskren. And inside, you'll find the default folders used across macOS, like desktop, music, photos, documents, downloads, and a few others. Finder itself is highly customizable, letting you adjust how the files are presented depending on how you prefer to work. I personally keep the Finder as clean as possible and stick to list view since I find icon view unnecessarily cluttered and harder to scan. Creating folders is super easy. Right-click on an empty area to create one or just use the file menu, and renaming it is as simple as clicking the name again or using the contextual menu for more options. Finder also includes a built-in archiving feature, so if you select multiple files and right-click, you can instantly create a compressed archive to send or store. One of the Finder's most powerful features here is the preview. Whether it's a photo, video, or document, pressing the spacebar lets you preview the file instantly. And if you're browsing multiple images, you can use the arrow keys to move through them without even opening a separate app. Talking about Preview, Preview is the built-in all-purpose app that can open almost anything without installing extra software. It handles documents, images, PDFs, and more straight out of the box, and for most basic tasks, it's all you'll ever need, including for merging PDFs or adding pages to documents. Safari is the default web browser on the Mac, similar to how Edge works on Windows, and integrates seamlessly with the iPhone and iPad for things like tabs, history, and passwords. You're free to install other browsers, of course, but Safari is a solid place to start. One app I strongly recommend taking advantage of here is Passwords, which again is part of macOS. And it's great, especially if you're not already relying on a third-party password manager. It's built into the system, synced securely, and designed to safely store the credentials you rely on every day. Most of macOS's settings live inside the system settings, which you can access from the Apple menu at the top left. This is where you'll handle everything from changing your desktop wallpaper, switching to light and dark mode, to configuring your keyboard input methods and shortcuts, and adjusting accessibility options, including enabling proper right-click behavior like we talked about. It's worth spending time here browsing through these settings so the Mac can be tailored to how you actually work. The next thing worth understanding is iCloud. iCloud is Apple's built-in cloud service, and it's an integral part of macOS, and during setup, you'll be prompted to sign or create an account. iCloud allows your Mac to stay in sync with other Apple devices and gives you access to iCloud Drive, which works like an online hard drive that's available anywhere. iCloud is also there to help you find your devices via the Find My network and stay protected. Anything stored on iCloud can be accessed from any other devices or through the web. I have a dedicated video that goes deeper into how iCloud works, and I'll include it at the end of this video if you want to check it out. Now, it's a bit old, but still very much relevant. If you're connecting an external monitor, things couldn't be simpler. Now, you basically have two options. You can either mirror the display of the laptop to the monitor, or you can extend it, which makes a lot more sense. So to organize this, you have to go to the settings of the Mac and find the display options. From here, you have the option to extend that display. So at that point, there's a button called Arrange. Arrange is what allows you to position the laptop relative to the monitor. So in the case here, the laptop stays below the monitor, but if it's to the side, it could be right here, or again, flanking it on the other side. The other thing to keep in mind here is this bar, which is basically your menu and dock. This bar determines which of those displays is considered primary. So if you want to keep the laptop as a primary display, you can just grab the bar and move it over to the laptop. Boom. If you want to go back, you can just grab it and move it back to the studio display, which now becomes the primary display. And that's pretty much it. So here are the most important shortcuts that you'll most likely end up using. Command plus Q quits an app. Command plus C, as you expect, copies. Command plus V pastes. Command plus H hides an app or window. Command plus W closes all active windows. Command plus space fires up Spotlight. Control plus space changes the language input. Command plus I opens additional info about a file. Command plus F is used to search and find something somewhere. Command plus or minus zooms in and out of text, interface, or browser. Option, Command, and Escape opens the Force Quit menu. If you enjoyed this video, then you should definitely check out my latest Mac Apps episode right here. Like and subscribe to the channel as well as my newsletter, and as always, it's been an absolute pleasure. This is E, over and out.